All right, so today I'm going to be talking about different sketches and doodles you can do to get better at art. Uh, the great thing about sketches and doodles is you can do them pretty much anywhere. Like, you can draw it on like a piece of paper, you can do it while you're waiting for someone. It's pretty easy to find a little bit of time to do a doodle or a sketch. I, of course, always recommend to do this on paper and pencil, but I don't really have that option right now. You, of course, can always do it digital, but the easiest way to learn how to draw, especially, is to always do it on paper. And a great thing about a doodle is you can practice your drawing skills when you're not actually drawing like an official drawing that you want to do well on. A lot of people forget about the importance of doodling because if you don't doodle, you can't come up with good art skills or just ideas. Some of the best ideas were from a doodle, or just something someone randomly wrote down. It could be done in sciences, it could be done in various fields. And then you have your little character that you can draw, right? This was done pretty quickly in almost 2 minutes only. So, how did I get this skill to be able to draw my little character very quickly? Well, it's very simple. I doodled. One of my favorite doodles to do is I just make little circle spirals everywhere. Now, why little circle spirals? Well, because you can just fill up a normal page of it, right? So if you see a little corner that there's no text written in, you can just fill up the corner with your little purple spirals, right? A great way to know if you're actually learning from these purple spirals is to see if you can make a spirogram yourself, because all this is drawing a circle over and over. Now, a normal spiral doesn't have the circles interlock with each other, but it is easier to draw when you do that. You also get your hand used to drawing circles for when you need to draw a circle to draw a person. So that makes it pretty easy when you need to do that. You need practice drawing your shapes so that you can use the shapes to draw more difficult subjects, to say the least. So that is my first recommendation. My second recommendation when it comes to drawing is doing hashtags. Hashtags are pretty simple. You're just drawing a line in one area and then you flip it to the other direction. This is mostly seen in anime people, right? You'll see it on the neck most often, and you'll also see it as like a sign of disdain for emotions. So hashtags can be very useful to get used to that. You also need to be able to just draw lines in general when you are drawing. Most lines aren't perfect straight lines when you're doing freehand, but it will get you closer to your goals. The other one is gradients, going from a stronger brush to a lighter one. On digital, you cannot see it very easily. I will switch to a different brush, but the harder you press on something and then the lighter, it creates a gradient. This is wonderful for coloring, right? Whether you want to add a bit of shading to your character or you want to combine two random colors together to make an in-between color. It is wonderful for learning how to do such things. This is also useful for when you do outlines, because sometimes you want a thicker outline and then other times you want a thinner one. So gradients can be very useful. Another one is doing little squares. I like making little squares when I draw. Now, they're kind of like square spirals, right? And it's like, why would you want to do a square spiral, right? It's more ineffective than a circle, and you're not learning how to draw straight lines with this one. But there's going to be a lot of things where you got to keep drawing and drawing, so you have to be consistent with how you do it. You're going to change direction when you draw like lines and stuff. You're going to have curved lines, you're going to have angled lines. And this kind of helps you get used to having to change the position of your hand when you are drawing. So just, again, practice with moving your hand in a way to make things. It's also very useful for when you draw clothing, because most clothing has very rigid lines to them. They are not very curved as the human face. Another one is facial expressions, all right? You want to practice facial expressions, especially when you're doing a character art. When you do character art, your character is going to want to express different emotions, or you're going to want the character to express different emotions. And that is where character emotions are important. So that can be helpful for when you actually draw it, and you also get used to drawing a face. Because honestly, faces are difficult, and you need practice drawing that. And maybe you don't want to draw your whole entire character at once, so you just draw the expressions. And then, of course, you have patterns. I love doing patterns because it's kind of fun to see how your brain comes up with them. There's pretty much any pattern you can do whatsoever, right? You just come up with, if you want to do a zigzag line, maybe you want to do a pattern of curved lines that follow within each other, and then you drew a cross through it, right? And then you like kind of shade it and mix it. There's a lot of options that you can have when you draw things that are in patterns. The reason I say that is because you will draw things that follow patterns. The circles and the squares are a pattern of each other. When you do this, the hashtags, they are patterns of each other. So learning to make your own patterns is also a part of drawing, especially clothing. If you want to ever draw like zip ties or things, a lot of things in land and other places are pattern based. Speaking of land and other places, like I did with the squigglies, you want to follow it along the same route because you're going to be repeating the same area over and over again when you do landscapes. So you want to be able to do that over and over again. It also gets your hand used to copying another shape right after you've done it. Now, these don't have to be perfect shapes that follow along. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. But to give an example of me doing that shape, there it is. When you use a stamp, you recreate your pattern based on what you're following. So we did that there. Say I want this area to be darker than the other. I'm just going to follow that pattern right there. Then I'll make another area lighter just to follow up against it. And then we're going to go back to close to our original color and just kind of follow it again. Loosely, of course. And you kind of can see, if we fill it in down here, that it starts to look like grass. Yeah, just fill that in. Now it kind of looks like grass after you've repeated that pattern over and over. It may not be a perfect interpretation, but it's there. That way you can use your patterns digitally to make things. Now, of course, if you do it by hand, it's a little different, but you'll still have patterns and other things to follow, especially if you use like brushes and stuff in painting. So it kind of just depends on what you use. And then you come to your final part where you can just draw your character without even needing to sketch it out first. It also makes you faster at drawing your character. That way, you don't have to worry about what do they look like, look at other things. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but it will make you faster if you want to, say, do animations or make a lot of drawings for someone. The more you practice, the more you learn and the more you can study from it. Of course, if you just draw aimlessly just to draw, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're drawing for a specific purpose, you can make your little character on any part of the page in any pose that you want. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful year.